Welcome to the EQ Video Tip. I'm your host, Eric Forsetter. As always, it's great to have you join us. We're going to jump into the goals of EQ Video Tip and then into this week's episode. Welcome back. What's on tap today? Well, if you're feeling stressed, you're not alone. And according to our author, Jeff Hayden, who's a contributing editor at Inc.com, over 75% of Americans out there right now say that they feel stressed. They feel stressed with headaches or fatigue or problem sleeping. And everybody has this type of problem. Clearly, stress is an issue in our world. And it's not just in the U.S., it's global right now. And when we think about it, if you ask someone how they feel about stress, they'll tell you a list of 20, 30, 40 different things. And it's a big laundry list. And what happens is when people just have to have stress or stress about one thing, they can handle it. Where it becomes an issue and compounds is when multiple things fall on their plate and they can't deal with all of them at one time. And it's important to understand what that means and to be more granular with your emotions. So for example, if you're stressed or anxious about an upcoming presentation, that's one thing. But when you compound that over time with many things, it builds up this emotion and gives you a pile up or a junkyard or whatever you want to call it of frustrations and worry and things like that. We're going to talk about how to get granular with your emotions and feel much better about what you're dealing with and give those different emotions a name for them as well, so that at the end of the day, when you're concerned, when you're stressed, when you're frustrated, you will have a way to overcome those emotions and understand what the stress that is coming to you. Let's jump in and talk about our first tip. Tip number one, stop clumping. And clumping is when we take emotions and we bundle them all together. We started talking about that a little to begin with. But as an example, if you're stressed, you may not say, I'm worrying about something or I have anxiety over something. You're just saying, I'm stressed. And it's important to be specific about what you're talking about, because if you're not, you're broadly grabbing things and making that all into something that we call clumping. And people who have this clumping issue don't get granular and specific in terms of how they're feeling their emotions and understanding them as well. And they have scored worse in terms of how they deal with stress and trying to differentiate things from I'm angry or worried as opposed to I'm just frustrated, right? And understanding those emotions are really important. So take a moment to not clump all your emotions together and understand specifically what you're looking at. Tip number two, identify that specific emotion. We talked about clumping a minute ago. Now we want to declump it and understand what the emotion means. So never settle for, I feel stressed. That's just saying or clumping things together. Instead, be specific. You're worried about completing a specific project, or you have a big speech coming up and you're not sure if you're going to mess up when you talk during it. You're concerned about a relationship. You're hesitant to speak up about a problem at work. Whatever it might be, understand what that emotion is, talk about it, label it, and list the reasons you feel stressed. Try to give as much information to yourself about what that specific feeling is, that it's not just stress, there's something else to it. And describe those emotions. And when you do that, take time to think about how you feel. We'll explain why right after this. Our next tip. Decide what you're going to do and how you're going to tackle each emotion or problem that you're dealing with. It's important to write these things down in a list as opposed to keeping it in your head, because when it's in your head, your emotions are making the list and you're not taking the time to understand what the problem is and how to deal with it. Jeff Bezos actually says that stress primarily comes, as he says, from not taking actions on something that you can control and you have control over. He finds that it's best if he is worried about something, he tries to handle it as soon as possible. That means picking up the phone and making that phone call that he might be dreading, or sending that email, just to dramatically reduce that stress that he's feeling right now. So take time, identify the things that you want, make a list, and as Jeff says, step 2, take action on it. Our last tip, reframe as positive. Take that negative emotion and turn it to a positive one. For example, if you're worried about a deadline that you may not meet for your company, don't worry that if you don't miss it, things are going to go wrong. But if you're able to hit it, you might be the hero. So reframe it as positive. Or if you're nervous about giving a talk, instead of saying you're nervous, say you're excited about that. Change those negative emotions to positive ones and think about what the positive aspect of you succeeding will do for other people, for the company, for your friends, for your family. When you do that, you're reframing that negative energy and turning it into positive emotion that will help you in the long run. So remember, you have control over what you're doing, and you can manage your own emotions and change them from negative to positive. That concludes this week's EQ video tip. The next time you feel stressed or anxiety over something coming up in your life, make sure you take a look at these tips to help you manage yourself and your emotions through that difficult time. So that concludes our EQ video tip for today. Try incorporating some of these tips into your daily routine. But remember, use what works best for you and personalize it for yourself. Thank you always to our great research team for providing us with some great tips today. As always on EQ Video Tip, we want to end with gratitude. So thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Here are some resources that you can use if you want more information on EQ going forward. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.